Let's say you wake up one morning, open your curtains, and instead of the usual blue sky, you're met with the majestic arch of massive, glowing planetary rings stretching from horizon to horizon. That's not a trick of your eyes or an alien invasion. Earth, in this alternate universe, has rings, like Saturn. Only ours are better, because they belong to us. But wait, how exactly did those rings get there? Let's assume a moon, maybe one of our past moons, got too close to Earth, wandered past something called the Roche limit, and was torn apart by our planet's gravity. The result, a beautiful, shimmering disk of rock, ice, and regret now encircles the globe. From a distance, say, low Earth orbit, it's a celestial halo, silently circling like Earth's own crown. But back on the surface, things get weird fast. The first and most obvious change: the sky. Forget the stars, you'd barely see them at night anymore. The rings, reflecting sunlight, would light up the sky like a permanent aurora, especially near the equator. Cities that never sleep would now have skies that never sleep either. Midnight stargazing. Good luck. Those majestic rings would drown out the faint glow of galaxies with their icy glitter. But it depends where you live. From the equator, you'd see them edge on, the thin, glowing line across the sky, like someone drew a sword across the heavens. Travel further north or south, and the angle widens. In mid-latitudes, say New York, Rome, Tokyo, you'd see a grand arc, something out of a dream. At the poles, the rings would be a full circle in the sky, a giant target you never asked for. Sounds poetic, right? Except it ruins every photographer's life because golden hour is now a myth. Sunsets are filtered through rock and ice and shadows. The rings would scatter and reflect sunlight in unpredictable ways, creating strange patterns, half-shadowed cities, and never-ending twilight zones. Beautiful, yes. Helpful, not really. And then there's the climate. You see, rings aren't just pretty, they block sunlight. Depending on their density and width, some parts of the Earth would receive less solar radiation. That's a fancy way of saying, hello, mini ice ages. Equatorial regions might cool significantly. You could wake up in Rio and find snowflakes instead of samba. Crops would shift. Weather patterns would go berserk. Entire ecosystems would scream, I wasn't built for this. Now, let's talk culture. Because you better believe religion, art, and war would all be affected. Ancient civilizations built entire mythologies around stars and comets. Imagine what they do with a glowing, unblinking arch above their heads every night. Maybe the rings would be seen as the gates of heaven, or as a divine warning. Pharaohs would declare themselves masters of the ring. Conquerors would wage wars under it, claiming it as a cosmic endorsement of their destiny. On the bright side, no more arguing about horoscopes. Everyone would agree that the sky is doing something crazy. On the darker side, we'd have ring-based doomsday cults. When the arch turns red, the end is near. Someone would shout, based solely on a red sunset and a bad week at work. Now, you might be wondering, could the rings fall? Short answer, yes. Long answer, well, yes. And when they do, it's not ideal. The smaller chunks might gradually deorbit and burn up like meteors. Pretty harmless. The big chunks, if one ever destabilized, you'd get a raining apocalypse of flaming icebergs from space. Humanity would survive, but probably start calling themselves the Ring Survivors, which is great for dystopian movie titles, less great for actual survival. And don't forget spaceflight. Remember how hard it is to launch a rocket through regular, empty sky. Now imagine threading a multi-ton needle through a spinning field of debris at 25,000 kilometers per hour. NASA's launch window becomes launch tunnel. Every rocket becomes a gamble, a cosmic game of Frogger. Space tourism. Maybe later. Space collisions. Definitely sooner. But maybe we adapt. Maybe we evolve. The rings become part of our identity. Flags get redesigned. Kids draw them in crayon. Instagram becomes 70% ring selfies. Economies develop around ring tour. Luxury flights that cross the atmosphere just enough to give passengers a view. Poets write about them. Scientists warn about them. Conspiracy theorists claim they're a cover-up from 1964. In the end, Earth with rings is beautiful, breathtaking, alien, tragic. It's a planet forever aware of its own sky, where the horizon doesn't end in blue, but in shimmering, dangerous perfection. And as you stare up at those brilliant, arching bands, glowing in the dusk, one final thought hits you: man, Saturn really had a point.